Joining me now is Nicole Pearson. Remember, she is with factslawtruthjustice.com. Here's her website right here, factslawtruthjustice.com. Well, she brings us not only an update on that bill that so many of us talked about and were concerned about, AB 495, but she's here to tell you about another one. I mean, can it get any worse? Well, we're going to find out about this other bill. I think both of them are waiting to be signed by the governor. Before we get to that, speaking of the governor, that would be the governor of California, Newsom. He was on one of the late shows last night. But first, let me welcome Nicole Pearson. Nicole, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me again. Love being here.
Love having you with us and all the great work you're doing. All right, so your governor was on a late show last night, and here's what he had to say. Here we go.
Look, we had a 15-year-old disabled kid in Los Angeles was waiting for his sister to come out of high school, and they pulled out guns on this kid. They pulled out guns and handcuffed this young child. That's happening in the United States of America. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process, no oversight, zero accountability, happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? Bull, we're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country. And so I'm deeply proud that I had the privilege of signing the nation's first bill to address the issue of masking, also to require you have simple identification, to your point. I mean, if some guy jumped out of an unmarked car in a van with a mask on, tried to grab me, I mean, by definition, you're going to push back. And so these are not just authoritarian tendencies. These are authoritarian actions by an authoritarian government. You saw what Stephen Miller said last week. This should put chills up fine. Called the Democratic Party an extremist organization, basically a terrorist organization, saying he's going after his enemies. You saw the tweet that Donald Trump sent out, Truth Social, basically telling Pam Bondi, I want these 3 people taken out. That's happening in the United States. This can't be normalized. None of this can be normalized.
Okay, says the guy who's part of the party that was saying that moms at school board meetings were terrorists. So now the shoe is on the other foot, apparently, and he doesn't like it. And yet he's saying authoritarianism, dictator, that these I guess, illegal immigrants are arrested and they disappear. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're worried about the children disappearing. Aren't you behind legislation that can cause children from all over this country to be taken to California, and the California government will help them disappear, change their name? I mean, everything he's saying, I thought for a minute, wait a minute, is he talking about his own bill?
Well, Brandon, as I mentioned briefly off air, I'm personally having a little bit of an existential crisis. So I'll just cut to the chase. They're all the same. So if people don't understand what's happening in the United States of America, it is the pendulum. It's not even the pendulum swinging one way or the other. It's the same pendulum. So they are going to incite violence, pick on these extreme examples. Like he just gave an example of, I have no idea why a 15-year-old disabled child, regardless of their color, would be taken off the streets by masked gunmen. That just never happened. That's a lie. But they're just 2 wings of the same bird. So I have serious concerns about what the Trump administration is doing. I have serious concerns about what Pam Bondi has said. They are weaponizing the government and going after speech. That is a problem, regardless of whether it's a Democratic representative or a Republican representative.
100%
we need to
agree.
wake up.
I just want to make sure.
We need to wake up.
I'm so
I don't
glad.
care.
You and I have not rehearsed, okay? We don't rehearse our interviews, okay? I have no clue what she was going to say. She has no clue what I'm going to say. I don't think she knows, because I know she's very busy with her own family and work, that we've been saying the same thing here. See, this is common sense. We said Pam Bondi shouldn't be talking about criminalizing free speech. The FCC chairman, as I said last week, as someone who's on 74 terrestrial stations every day, Monday through Friday, the FCC chairman shouldn't be saying to a broadcaster who's practicing free speech, whether we agree with it or not, well, to their broadcast outlet, we can make this easy or hard. Look, we don't have to agree. We will even defend your right to say things we don't agree with. But we don't need the Attorney General. We don't need the FCC coming down on ABC or anyone else for what is being said, as long as it's not incitement, terroristic threats, right? Something illegal. They can say it all day long, because the next administration is going to come along. They're going to call up my radio network, the FCC, and say, your license is at risk if you don't get rid of Brandon House, who what he says is not in the public interest. And then the next Attorney General is going to be saying, and now we want to prosecute him and Nicole Pearson and others that are talking in such negative ways about transgenders and LGBTQ and denying people their civil liberties of transition. We're going to prosecute them for hate speech. And you know what?
Totally.
The right will have completely set it up for the left. And sometimes I have to wonder if we're not being played. Not that Donald Trump is doing this per se on purpose, but are there some people around him that are using him and he doesn't realize what he's being used to set the platform for?
Absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, we just need to get on the same page. It's us against them. Truly, freedom is the freedom to think what you want and to do what you want, as long as you are not injuring other people. I know that we saw, for example, in COVID, a really grotesque distortion of what that is, right? You're walking around unvaccinated. You're threatening my life and my safety and my health. Even within that own definition, your rights end where my rights begin. It isn't a bright line. However, we have to just go back to the basics and just, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. As long as there's no evidence, no concrete evidence that what you're doing is injuring somebody else, then you are allowed to, that is freedom. And especially what you think and then what you say. Again, unless it's inciting imminent lawlessness, inciting imminent violence against an individual or a group, that's how you set, this is public discourse. This is what Charlie spoke about when he was just, what we see what's happening with his situation. I mean, there is a full-on assault on free speech. We have bills in California that are passing through the legislature. We have federal bills that are passing through the federal government as well, trying to do viewpoint discrimination and try and silence different viewpoints. And that's just not what this country was founded on. These are not the principles that we were founded on. This is not what made us the greatest social experiment and political experiment of mankind, of history. You allow the debate and the good ideas rise to the top and the bad ideas fall away to the wayside. Cut out a man's tongue. It doesn't prove that you were right. It just proves that you are afraid of what he has to say. And so I am a strong proponent of letting people run their mouths and letting them hang themselves and letting the bad ideas be fleshed out of the system. That's the only way that we can truly be a free and prosperous society of healthy ideas and individuals.
100%. This is what talk TV, talk radio has been about, right? Mm-hmm. They get angry because they can't attract an audience, right? We now hear that hardly anyone's watching these late night shows. That we actually have a higher viewership than some of the late night talk shows. It's not uncommon for us to do 1 million views a day, Nicole.
You deserve it.
Well, thank you. We have been doing it for 35 years. 35 years. We do feel like we've worked pretty hard and the Lord's blessed us. But Jimmy Kimmel, we've seen some of their ratings. It's not our fault that the left can't attract an audience. That doesn't mean they need to come after us with fair speech laws or equal speech or equal time, which they've tried to do for years. And I don't remember who it was I heard the other day in the government talking in a way, Nicole, that sounded just like equal time. 20 years ago, we were warning about and fighting the equal time concept on talk radio, Christian radio. And what that was all about, Nicole, was that if we put somebody on and we talk with you about the LGBTQ agenda, transitioning, all this going on, and all we're concerned about, and parental authority, we would have to offer equal time to someone of the opposing view because we're on the government's airwaves, FCC, right? They went so far as at one time, this was 20 years ago, this was during Obama's first term. One of his guys was proposing that on the internet, we would have to have a public sidewalk on all websites so that when we're saying something like we are right now, off on the side of our website, that the public could come in and be opposing what we're saying, posting up information, whatever they wanted, to offer up their side. Okay. Well, first of all,
real time fact checking, basically. Yeah.
And we would have to give them that public sidewalk. I think that was Cass Sunstein doing that. I have to go back and check. But it was one of the Obama guys. Yeah. And what you're saying is, I get to work for 35 years, build up an audience. I have to pay for all the servers, all the IT guys, all the bandwidth to the tune of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month. All the stuff I have to pay for, about 40 grand a month to stay on the air. And then I've got to turn around and I've got to loan that free of charge to liars and deceivers and perverts to try to deceive my audience and other people, some who are coming here that don't know what to believe, and they're here trying to learn. And now they're being distracted and deceived by liars. They actually proposed that idea 20 years ago. And I saw conservatives saying, well, these late night talk show hosts, they've turned into nothing but political shows that only offer one opinion. And I said to myself, you know what? Here again is the so-called right falling into a trap that you have to offer equal time. That will destroy broadcasts like us, Christian radio, conservative radio. It will destroy these platforms. And who's pushing it, Nicole? The right.
Right. Well, I mean, it's free market capitalism. Just let the people go to get the products and consume the products and the information from the platforms that they want. I mean, they don't want to accept the fact that people want to hear this, that they are agreeing, that they are coming back to the more conservative, constitutional, more, traditional viewpoints. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. That's just the reality of the situation. You can't force it no matter, I actually don't care what they do, because I know that what I'm speaking is the truth. I know that what you're speaking is the truth, and you're just so honest about it and genuine. And you even offer up your own counterpoints. I mean, you're doing it right now. People see that. That's why they come here. That's why people listen to me. I've gone to rallies and given speeches, for example, at school board meetings. And I've had transgender activists come up to me, and trans children, or children who are gender confused, come up to me and thank me for speaking. Because when I talk about privacy and autonomy and protecting children and our fundamental constitutionally protected rights, I'm speaking about timeless principles and truths. I'm not speaking in right-left dogma. And so what I speak resonates with people from all walks of life. And it's been very liberating, and it's also been very powerful, because I can connect with people the same way that you do, Brandon. I share your information with people across the political and religious and social spectrum, and they respond amazingly. They're very interested in what you have to say, because you back it up with facts and with data and with sources. And I think that when you are honest about the weaknesses or the counterpoints, then people come to you as a reliable, credible source. So they can do whatever they want. People are going to always flock to the truth. And so, that's what I take comfort in. That's what I've seen in my practice. And that's what I've seen in my advocacy the last several years. So I just take comfort in that, and let the crazies, like I said, let them run their mouths, let them speak, because even the left is running from that, because they have gotten so extreme. So, they will ultimately dig their own graves. And so, we just keep plowing forward and keeping our eyes focused on our work.
Absolutely. Amen. And thank you for the compliments. While you were talking, I was also listening, but I wouldn't look it up. Look at this. And this is what I love about our show. And I don't know any other show out there that does a lot of producing of the show in real time. Our shows are not scripted. We don't do pre-interviews. We have maybe one or two things we want to talk about, of which we've never even gotten to yet, but we will. And the conversation happens, and it's free-flowing, and something is said which sparks a memory, which sparks, oh, let's go look up that. And here we are. I love this because it's real, okay? We're just having a conversation, and you guys are getting to listen in, right? So this is not scripted. So I reached over, and I started searching, and there it is from 2009. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if this was a website I think this website probably is liberal. It looks like a Mao star and whatnot. But anyway, it says it talks about Cass Sunstein. And what strikes me at the uproar is that SideWiki is a lot like the electronic sidewalks that Cass Sunstein proposed in his book, Republic.com. The concept was first developed in detail in a law review article by Noah Zatz titled Sidewalks in Cyberspace, Making Space for Public Forums in the Electronic Environment. The idea is a fairness doctrine for the internet that would require site owners to give equal time to opposite political views. Sunstein eventually abandoned the view, admitting that it was unworkable and probably unconstitutional. Now here comes Google, a corporation, not the government, and makes digital sidewalks real. So there's the article. And isn't that always the way they do it? They end up using the government, the corporations and the government, and they are involved together in these public-private partnerships, what I call communitarianism. Mm-hmm. They get together and they get the government to push they get the corporations to push what the government wants, because the government can't really do it without maybe running into a roadblock with the Supreme Court. So we'll get the corporations to do it. Well, if you want to use our platform, you want to use our servers, you want to use our apps, you want to use our broadcast platform, whatever that broadcast platform might be. You know, I won't name any of them because I'm not saying them or doing that, but there's some big ones out there that we all build apps to use this streamer, that streamer, that streamer. They let us have our own channel. But someday they may come back and say, you got to rewrite your code and you have to allow for public sidewalks. Now it's not the government doing, it's a private company doing it, but at the behest of the government. And this is what we're talking about. And yet we have people on the right applauding the FCC chairman, applauding Pam Bondi, and now openly saying, well, the talk show hosts at night, they're nothing but offering the left narrative. Yes, and guess what? Their ratings have crashed. Apparently, they're not getting any more USAID money, so I don't know how they're making it. You know, a lot of them are losing money. They won't be around much longer if we just let them go. Instead, we want to come up with ideas to infringe on free speech, which is going to bite us in the backside next time around.
We're in a really dangerous time. It is extremely dangerous what's happening, especially on the tail or the heels, of September 10th and the Charlie Kirk situation that we have going. And it's very, very scary to see people lapping up and applauding and lining up for the very same policies that we were attacking and protesting the last 4 years. And you see the memes all the time where it's like, you know, that it's a black and white cartoon with a scary kind of looking guy that's like yelling. And then it's like, you know, if it's Biden or Kamala or, Democrat, no, that's unconstitutional. We don't like it. But as soon as it's Donald or, just red, then it's like, I love it. Give me, some more tech surveillance. Give me more AI. Give me more drones. And so, the more I do this work, the more I speak with people such as yourself and your team, it just becomes more and more obvious that, again, I just hope if anyone watches this, and this is not what we plan to discuss at all, is that it is two wings of the same bird. It's us against them. And the them is actually a very, very, very small, I know you wrote a book about this, an elite group of only very few countries, many of whom you are very well aware of, that we hear about in the narrative and the mainstream media. So even of all the countries in the world, which what are there, 194, 174 right now currently, only a few of those are actually controlling everything. And they're using these labels and these check marks and these boxes to put us into these labels to put us into boxes, then creating scenarios, activating scenarios that force us to retreat into our boxes so that they can pit us against each other and then have us distracted and fighting one another, because that's how they can start passing laws while we're distracted, ushering more in AI. I mean, it's not even secret. The bills and the contracts and the infrastructure that's already been placed for the AI surveillance, the tech surveillance, again, and people are begging for it right now because the Trump administration is doing it, and he's acting like a big businessman and tech overlord. But they love it, and they're begging for it. And
but they love it.
It's very scary. It's very scary.
And again, people with reason, logic, and context think the same way. Mm-hmm. When you have knowledge, acquisition of truth. Then you have wisdom, the application of that truth. And when you have knowledge, you can see these things. But very few people have knowledge, the acquisition of truth, because they stay so busy. And as I said on radio today, many Americans get their news from talk radio. And many of the talk radio guys put out some good stuff, but they won't go deep like we do. And they won't talk about certain things because of the corporations that own those broadcast networks. And so even conservative radio is about an inch deep and a mile wide. They tell you the symptoms. They tell you all these symptoms, but they never tell you what is at the root of it. Where are the symptoms? What's the tree that's producing this fruit? They just talk about all the fruit being produced, the negative fruit. Well, let's get to the root of the tree. Where's it coming from? And you don't know this, but everything you just said matches up with my opening commentary on radio today and the show I did today. And you just said some of the same things I said on my radio show today, which got a huge response from our audience saying, when will you be posting that? I have to share that everywhere, because you were explaining what I said today, and you didn't know this. You didn't listen to my show at 1 o'clock, did you?
How do you know that?
Well,
I always listen.
You're very busy, so I highly doubt you listened. You're very busy. You didn't,
it's
right?
for later. No, I did not.
Okay, so that's the point. She didn't, because I know she's very busy with her job and family. But she didn't listen to my show today to know what I said. She just said the same thing I did today. Now, what are the odds of that? That's because she's a thinking person putting together the puzzle. And many of you in this audience, you're doing the same thing. I want to hone in on what she said. Many people on the right are begging for the tech overlords. And today on radio and TV, I said, when you see this violence on the right, quote, violence, that they'll use false flag or whatever they come up with. That's what I'm waiting on right now. They used the January 6th as that narrative for a while, but eventually they're going to have another sniper. And that's today what I was thinking. Is this going to be a sniper on the right or the left? Because I warned my audience last week, you're going to have chaos and then calm and then chaos and then calm, because it's part of a psychological operation that goes back to the Tavistock Institute that's in my series on brainwashing. And I said, now we're watching to see if we see someone on the right do it. So today's shooter, I was waiting, did he kill the immigrants on purpose because he's a right winger? Well, turns out they say he's a left winger. I don't know why he killed the immigrants, not the ICE people. Maybe he's a bad shot. I don't want anyone shot, but I was waiting to see what the narrative would be, right? So maybe we're going to see a few more leftist shooters until they can come up with a right-wing shooter, supposedly. And now we have the two groups pitting each other. And now we have this constant conflict until the great majority of the country, which is not really tracking with a lot of this because they don't want to hear it, because they have a family to raise and a job to go to and food to put on the table, and they're fighting inflation. The vast majority of the country is going to say, we've got extremists on the right, we've got extremists on the left, and then we got the rest of us in the middle who just want to live our lives, and we're tired of this. So go ahead, give us biometrics, give everybody a digital ID so we can end this garbage and we'll know who everybody is, and we can even predict some of it in advance by what they're saying on the internet before, because it seems like they always say it before, and then the algorithm will pick it up and flag it, and we can live in a minority report, but at least we'll be back to normal. And I said, and the majority of the people will accept it, because they're sick of the chaos. And that's what Yuri Bezmenov, the former KGB officer, said in 1984. They talked about this. You demoralize, destabilize, chaos, and then people accept the new norm. The new norm, as you said, the tech overlords, to get everybody registered. So you and I are saying the same thing, and we haven't even discussed this topic today. You didn't hear the show today. And yet from our own research, we're warning the American people, you're about to see tyranny, not just from the left, you're going to see it from the right as well, because that's the Hegelian dialectic to build this platform that's coming, as she's already said, from that same bird with two different wings.
I mean, the demoralization, I will say, from my perspective, is we just did this. I mean, we barely survived COVID. We saw who authorized Operation Warp Speed. And I'm not saying, like you just mentioned, who knows who was advising, but where did that start? Who carried it through to fruition? Who are the individuals who benefited and profited off of that? Well, look at them. They're sitting next to Donald Trump. The audacity for Mark Zuckerberg and for people to be applauding Mark Zuckerberg meeting with, conspiring with this administration is appalling. He should be in jail.
And
these people should be in jail. Bill Gates. And people are literally there were groups that were organized to like try and organize tribunals to put these people in jail who are now like, oh, look at them working together. How nice. I mean, they don't even hide what they're trying. Like at this point, I think that they have us, like you just said, so distracted with social media, with all the violence that's happening, but this constant stream of manipulative, abusive propaganda through social media. We are so distracted that the pricing, it's impossible to live here in this country, certainly not in California. And so we're desperate to work. We're desperate to try and, stay up to date with our children and just to survive. And then again, with that constant stream of propaganda, I mean, we're overwhelmed. I don't blame people, but people have to stop. At a certain point, people have to stop and slow down, put down the phone, delete the apps, start talking to your neighbors, start talking to your children, start talking to your partner again, start reconnecting with reality, what's happening in real time around you, and get back to humanity. Just get back to that human baseline. Because if we don't slow down, and I think we should have another show on AI, because I actually think that AI is the same as the COVID pandemic. I personally do not believe, and people are going to skewer me for this, I don't care. I think this is another propaganda. I think this is all smoke and mirrors. But all of us that listen to the narrative on AI, you've got to get ahead of AI. You have got to start incorporating it into every aspect of your life. If you don't master AI, it will master you. It will render you obsolete. We will have universal basic income, your job. No, I refuse. I will not be outmastered by a machine. It's physically impossible. For every sci-fi horror movie that we've seen, we've always seen that the human is always better than the machine, but they've allowed the machine to take over so much of their lives. They can't win, in the worst movies, they do lose because the machine locks them out of the spaceship or kills them or self-destructs, whatever the case may be. But it's another example of how we just listen to this narrative, this propaganda from the government, and that's what people are doing. They're literally letting their souls be sucked out of their bodies to try and master and get ahead of and incorporate AI into their lives, into their children's lives, when it's not necessary. And if enough of us just said no, it wouldn't happen, just the same way we did with COVID. So it's another tool to dominate us, control us, and to throw us into that digital tracking, monitoring system that you just mentioned, that minority report system. The only thing that we have is our humanity. The only thing that we have is that interconnectivity and our souls and those one-on-one, those human interactions. And we cannot, you don't need a JD, you don't need 35 years experience to know this. Like, that's how we won. That's how we won in COVID, was linking arms together in person and sharing our real experiences and then rising up against the government. I mean, we just have to hang on to the last vestiges we have of our humanity. It's not a sexy concept. It's very simple. But that's why they're trying to do the same thing that they did in COVID. So I don't even know what we're talking about today. But I'm enjoying the conversation.
No, I am too. And I want to get to it. And I want to get to what we said we were going to talk about, but this is so good. I got to go back to what you just said. This is smoke and mirrors. A lot of this AI is smoke and mirrors. And I think what they're trying to do, this is what I think you're saying, is get us comfortable with slavery. They're trying to get us comfortable. So they talk about AI and how great it's going to be and blah, blah, blah. And you need to interact with it and get comfortable with it and learn it and benefit from it. It's all to make you comfortable with being enslaved and joining this, what I think eventually will be an Antichrist beast system, right? So they're just telling you, come play with the system and get to know the system and comfortable with the system for fun, for entertainment, for ease, for better work, faster work, more proficiency. You can get rid of some employees and make more money and have a better, bigger, healthier bottom line. Don't worry about them. They can get on, basic income. But come, it's great. It's the golden age, right?
I think it's even worse, Brandon. I think it's get comfortable with being deemed obsolete by some algorithm. Like just from my work, when you see all these laws that are being passed for euthanasia, euthanasia for the homeless, euthanasia for the drug addicted, euthanasia for individuals with unique needs, and euthanasia, first it started with the elderly, or actually, severely disabled. I don't know what the word is anymore, but those, individuals who have, severe debilitating diseases. Then it was the elderly at the same time. And we've slowly expanded the type of individuals who are deemed worthy or in need of euthanasia, and we see it with abortion. And this is what has happened, right? We've allowed them to erode the sanctity of life and what it means, again, to be a human being. And so with this propaganda, this AI narrative, it's not just, with all due respect, it's not get comfortable. It's you need to they're prognosticating by 2027, we're going to hit this AI digital dystopia where it is going to be, I've heard lots of counterpoints, countervailing viewpoints on this from the experts, the AI experts. But by 2027, that's in a year and a half. By 2027, we're going to hit this digital dystopia. And if you have not mastered AI, your life will be unbearable, and excruciatingly painful to work, to travel, to live, to learn. And so you need to master. And in order to master, you need to throw yourself and your children and your partners and your businesses and your health and your privacy and your travel plans, like you just said, into the AI system. And otherwise you will be rendered obsolete. And
it's kind of like Facebook, where they got us to share all our information, everyone we talk to, everyone we know, so they could build a whole database on who works with who, how are they connected, what do they believe, how do they react. We built the deep state's intelligence system, I think, for them through Facebook, and now we're going to do it through AI. And I wonder if part of this is smoke and mirrors too, because we're being told all these data centers are needed for how great AI is and how powerful it is, and we have to have it. But what if the data centers are really about a digital currency and real-time tracking, literally real-time tracking of where we are at any given moment, and the requirements that would be needed for that kind of not only financial system, but tyrannical tracking social credit score system? You would need a massive amount of computer and database, and they're not going to tell you, hey, we're building 15-minute cities. We're building the technology for a tyrannical technocracy that's going to track every aspect you do, but that's going to take a ton of data centers. No, we can't tell them that. Just tell them how great AI is, and we're building these data centers so your life can be so great with AI. I think it's all, you're right when you say it's smoke and mirrors, because they need the data centers to do this. But most people are not thinking the data centers are basically like little Gestapo camps, digital Gestapo camps that we're all going to be rounded into, not physically, but digitally, that tracks our every move. Why do you need camps if you can track everybody digitally and turn on and turn off what they can and cannot do, where they can and cannot go? You don't need camps. So think of the little digital data centers as a bunch of little concentration political camps around the country that you're being shoved through with your information and controlled. What do you think?
Well, I mean, as you're speaking, it sounds just like COVID. It's the same thing, right? COVID was real, AI is real, and we can either accelerate their plan by complying and getting the vaccines and getting the QR code and testing, masking, separating, sheltering in place, et cetera. If we had not woken up and risen up against the COVID pandemic, we would be in a very different, we would be in what you're just describing right now, we would be there already. It didn't work. So now what are we going to do? We're going to, instead of going the negative route, we're going to go the positive route. Look at this new technology that we are rolling out to help, like you just said, make your lives more convenient. And then we're also going to use it to make your lives more safe. Look at how chaotic things are. We have mass shootings, we don't know if they're extreme right, extreme left, everything that you just mentioned. So now they create the problem, offer you the solution, and now we're offering, it's like instead of the negative, right, a virus that's going to kill you, you, AI that's going to make your lives healthier, more seamless, and more safe. It's just, again, two wings of the same bird, same idea. We couldn't get it done this way, so we're going to get it done this way. And we're going to tell people that if they don't get on board right away, they will be rendered obsolete. They will not be able to put food on their tables. Their children will not be able to be educated. They will not be able to travel. I mean, listen to all the experts that are coming out of the woodworks talking about AI. I mean, look at Sam Altman. He's telling us that AI is dangerous.
That's right.
He himself is saying, I am terrified, but we got to do it. We got to keep going. We got to plow through and get to the other side. No, Sam, we don't. If this were, I mean, as a lawyer, if I had a defendant or a client that had a dangerous product and we're like, we know it's dangerous, but we have to keep testing it on as many people as possible so we can reach the solution. No, that's not how this works. You pull the market you pull the product off the market, you figure it out behind closed doors. And if you can't make it safe, you don't offer it to billions of people across the globe. That's just not how this works. I'm tired of being told by these governmental spokespeople, these agents for the government, that I have to accept what they're dishing out to me. I don't have to accept it. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for my children. It's not safe. And if you are going to inject it into the stream of commerce, you better bet your bottom dollar that it's safe. And that's why these laws are so important. That's why we need to fight these laws, because what they're doing is, like we saw with the vaccine laws, with the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, what they're trying to do right now with Big Pharma. Right now with that Section 453, they're trying to create liability, shield themselves from liability, create what's called litigation, legal immunity from being sued for injuries they know they are going to cause by these dangerous products they are knowingly injecting into the stream of in the marketplace. So, we have to be focusing on our homes.
Yep.
Focusing on our relationships with our partners and our children, then our communities, our churches, our, however you socialize. We need to be, in my church this weekend, we talked about 3 things. Watch what you watch, hold the line. And then this last one sounds weird, but just be classy. Like, what happened to common decency? Be decent. Those are the 3 things. And if we can go back to that, then we can hold the line. If we are watching what we're watching, or we're not watching anything at all because we've shut it off and we haven't given our children these digital, basically this digital, I don't know what it is, link directly into the government systems through these private, like you said, these public-private partnerships, right? It's a private entity that is feeding our data to the government. If we're watching what we're watching, we're holding the line in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and in our communities, and we are being decent human beings, and we're respecting each other's privacy. Or again, with Charlie, more people's mourning and that the whole event. If we could just return to common decency, then they won't be able to do what they're trying to do, and we do not have to accept it. We absolutely, I don't care who's in office, we do not have to accept it.
And don't forget, I love that you brought up Sam Altman. Then you got Peter Thiel out there who's saying we have the choice between Antichrist or Armageddon, Antichrist or Armageddon. But what if there's a third way? Well, that's exactly what the public-private partnerships are. They're a third way. You take the government, you take the private industry, you merge them together for a third option, which ends up really being, I call communitarianism, communism light. I think today you would call it really technocracy, if people define it different ways. But I want to go to my crack producer, Logan. Chip, he's also my son. He, which but I'm reminding the new audience, the new viewers, he reminded me in my ear about something you said in this clip from Brian Kilmeade that floored me. I haven't addressed it, but it floored me when he said it. Listen to this.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why?
Just kill them. Involuntary lethal injection. Just kill them. Now, I don't want to go and tell the story in too great a depth because I've told it before over the years, but I worked and went down. And I'm not saying this because I'm such a wonderful, good person. I'm not. I'm just like everybody else. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So I'm not saying this story to say, oh, look at me. I went and did this once every month for 5 years. But I did. But it wasn't because I was a good person. I went and did it because I found it interesting. And to be honest with you, I was very young and I was practicing also public speaking on a very easy crowd. Homeless people. All right. So there were multiple reasons I went and did this. I enjoyed it. I felt I could make a difference, but I was also using this audience to practice. Okay. And so for 5 years, I went down to the Union Gospel Mission. I was in high school. I did it when I started in high school and for 5 years. So from like my junior year of high school all the way forward for 5 years. And the first Tuesday of every month, I would go down to the Union Gospel Mission, and the homeless people would come in, and if they came in and sat and behaved themselves, they would get a meal, a dinner, then they would get a shower, and then they'd get a cot, and then they would get breakfast in the morning, and then they would be turned out. And there at the first of the month, a lot of times, the crowd was down because a lot of them had their government checks, and so they were drinking it up and getting drugs. By the end of the month, they're out of money, and the crowd's bigger because they need the food and everything else. But I went there every first of the month of every Tuesday, and I saw a lot of people that were for all walks of life. And the chaplain would tell me some of these guys used to be a judge, an attorney, a police officer, a medical doctor, a professor. He said, I see them from all walks of life, middle to upper class. They had great families, and their families just couldn't tolerate their alcohol and drug abuse. And if they would just go into treatment, get help, they could go home, but they won't. Mm-hmm. Well, one man, at the end of a service one night, they all got up and they went to dinner, and there was left this guy. He looked like he was probably 70, 75 years old, 70, slumped over in his chair. And I walked up to him, and the chaplain was by the door waiting to see what he was going to do. And I said, well, I'll wake him up. I walked over and said, sir, you can get up. You can go eat. You can go eat. I thought he was drunk, came in there half drunk. Pops up. Oh. What's going on? I said, you can go eat now. Oh, okay. And he gets his little bag. He was wearing a suit coat. A dress shirt, dress pants, and dress shoes that he'd probably gotten at like the Goodwill. But came to find out he loved to be dressed up. And it turned out this was not a man that was an alcoholic. He was a man that we would say today had special needs. He was maybe autistic. In fact, I know he was autistic because of the things he could do and memorize and spit back at you. And his mother and father had died, and none of his family would take him in. And I became friends with him. His name was Carl. And I was dating my wife at the time. And I found out where Carl helped Carl get into a group home. I called social services. My wife was going to school to be a social worker. I called social services. I worked to get him into a group home. I knew where he was at, and I would go pick him up. And my wife and I would take him out to dinner and sometimes shopping. And he thought we were multimillionaires. My wife's in college. I'm running a commercial cleaning company. He thought we were multimillionaires because I had a car and could take him to Burger King and maybe go get a shirt or something somewhere, some toiletries. And I kept track of him for several years. And then he had a brain aneurysm on the street. And I lost track of him, and I found him. I started calling the hospitals, and I found him. And he had brain surgery. And when I hear people like Brian Kilmeade say that, these are people that have never worked at this level, and they do not realize some of these people are not there of their own free choice. They have special needs. They had a mom and dad that loved and cared for them. They died, and family members will not step in and take care of. This guy was as sweet as you can, and kind and appreciative and thank you. He was like dealing with a 6 or 7-year-old child. And to think that we have people on broadcast that say that, I know Brian came back and apologized, but what on earth was in his mind? What about all these kids that were pumped full of these shots when they were a baby and then had a reaction? And those kids have now realized they're different, And to deal with it, they start self-medicating and they get on drugs and Xanax. And pretty soon, even the parents who love them can't deal with them and they won't stay in the house and they go out and they're on the street. And yet, who did this to them? The government, by forcing the moms and dads to pump them full of these shots, or we're going to call CPS on you. And now the very government that created most of these kids in this condition wants to throw them in mental hospitals or just euthanize them. This to me is what is on the line of Nazi Germany and eugenics.
It is, and it's what I was just. That's a very beautiful story, and it's resonating with me. I agree. And if anybody has watched my work personally, they know that I'm like a very angry person. I'm a very, not an angry person, but I'm angry in the way that you are. I see here that you are angry. And for someone, and people, I've been in many debates and on the internet, obviously, and on panels. And one of the most confusing and painful ones is the pro-life debate. Because if you are pro-life and you are pro-death penalty, you're not pro-life, okay? You are anti-abortion and you are pro-death penalty. And I'll just try and share a small anecdote for you and your viewers is that, and the reason why I mentioned me being angry is, I want a lot of people to suffer and experience, and people always say an eye for an eye. And I would love that to be the case. And now that I understand the true meaning behind that phrase, it's not what people have distorted it to mean. I would love for people who have done what you've just discussed suffer in the same amount, comparable, equitable, right? Everybody talks about equity. But in high school, we had an ethics class, and my worst grade in that ethics class was about the death penalty. And I wrote like a 12-page paper on the death penalty and why, people who behave like animals should be treated like animals, and that when you behave a certain way that you waive your human rights and then you can be euthanized like an animal, which is to your point. And I got a B- on that paper, and I went to my professor or my teacher and I told him, you're giving me a bad grade because you disagree with me. And, I did the same quality of work. Just because I have a different opinion doesn't mean that I should get a lesser grade than all my other A's that I've ever gotten in this class. And we agreed. And when he described the situation that you and I are seeing unfold before our very eyes right now, it's that either everyone is entitled to life, regardless even of their criminal history, or they're not, because it starts to encroach, right? The reasons, the sphere of your reasons and your rationale for taking the life of another grows. And it grows without you actually having, like you said, firsthand percipient knowledge of even what that person is going through. So if we want to protect life and freedom and humanity, there needs to be a black and white rule, a hard and fast rule around life. And that is every life is sanctified. Every life is worth living. And no human being, and I don't even know your position on this, but no human being has the right to take the life of another human being, starting at conception until the day that they die. Because otherwise we will come up for reasons and we will come up for excuses. And, we saw this a couple of years ago when really anti-human trafficking came to the forefront of the debate during the previous Trump administration, and people were calling for the death penalty of pedophiles. I would love to see pedophiles who rape infants and every child, any person that harms a child, to suffer very painful deaths. But that's not within my authority. And pretty soon it's pedophiles, then it's this, then it's the other, and then it will expand, obviously enshrined in laws that we allow to be passed, till one day it's something like you just mentioned, a parent who doesn't want to vaccinate their child, who is now abusing their child. And the last administration, codified a law that says parents who abuse their children can be put in jail, euthanized, exterminated. So
And what's interesting is you don't know where I stand on this, but this is going to be very interesting. Because I'm sure a lot of my friends are watching and viewers that are for capital punishment are probably assuming, well, he's for capital punishment. Well, I have no issue with Romans 13, that the government doesn't bear the sword in vain and can do that, right? But here's my problem. My problem is that that's assuming the government is following what's in Romans 13, which is reward the righteous, punish the wicked, and make a stable and just society, and that the ministers, the elected officials, are ministers of God for good and not for terror. Now my problem is we don't have a government anymore, really, certainly at the federal level and in many of our states either, that is for good. What we have are politicians and judges lining their pockets and trying to win cases and burying evidence that could have let people go free. And this is why almost on a monthly basis, we read of DNA finally setting someone free that did 20, 30 years for a crime they did not commit. And my point is, well, what if they had performed capital punishment on that person? Now, the point isn't that I'm opposed to capital punishment. When it's done by a government that has people who are elected officials who are ministers of God that do what is right and just and good. But when you don't have a government that's run by good and just people for the right reasons and functions of government, which is you do your job and then you go back into the private world versus you come in and you plunder for yourself and your friends and your special interests. Well, now we're not dealing with a minister of God anymore. And we're dealing with people that are only now looking at it as a means by which to profit and make money. And if that includes building more prisons to warehouse more people, then let's make sure we make everyone a criminal, including parents who teach their children the Bible or take them to church or don't want to get them a vaccine. And pretty soon, let's declare some of these people mentally ill, because that's what Sigmund Freud said. The truly sane individuals are actually the neurotics. That's what he said. Because he said your natural inclination is for lust, cannibalism, incest, and murder. Those are your natural inclinations. Hello, that is not my natural inclination. Are you kidding me?
And no, yet he said that was the expert.
He said the ones that were insane were the Christians because they had suppressed their natural inclinations until the point they had gone neurotic and crazy. He said the Christians are the crazy ones. Now you want to open up mental hospitals? Now you want to euthanize the mentally ill? Let me tell you something. You better be very careful, as Nicole is saying, because you're assuming, again, we're back to Romans 13 with people who are ministers of God. Well, what if they're ministers of Satan, and now they're using government to set up mental hospitals and euthanize people, and they all of a sudden determine you are a domestic terrorist and you are mentally ill? There you go. I never thought we'd go there, but that's where we're at. All right, well, let's go to this. Fascinating conversation we're having. All right, let's get to AB 495. Where are we at with that? Because I just saw this tweet last night by Jack Hibbs. I'm calling on all Californians to please pray now as AB 495 has arrived on Newsom's desk as of 4 p.m. today, and that was yesterday.
Yes. So if now that this has been presented, enrolled and presented to the governor, he has 12 days to veto AB 495 or sign it into law. And if he does nothing in 12 days, then it will become law just by default. So we're asking that everyone be submitting comments online and asking him to veto the bill. It's an unnecessary bill, and it has expanded is not the right word. It has, I don't have the right word for how severely and significantly it has expanded the reaches of this caretaker's authorization affidavit and the harms and the dangers now presented to every child that finds himself in California, not just the children of undocumented immigrants, and not even just California children who live here, who are residents here, any child who is brought to this state.
Wow. So if he doesn't sign it in the next 12 days, it automatically becomes law. And what you bet, since he's running for president, he won't sign it?
Well, you know, we've had this debate before. On the one hand, he has intervened on other controversial bills affecting children, such as SB 14 and SB 14, which is Senator Shannon Grove's bills that were designed to protect the children who are the survivors of human trafficking and child sex trafficking. That bill was not unironically killed by the extremist Democrats in the California legislature, and Governor Newsom came in and intervened and revived the bills, and they actually became law. So we saw him protect children, and hopefully, and especially children who are vulnerable to human trafficking, which is exactly what we have here. In the children who are in danger if AB 495 passes are the children who would also be vulnerable and in danger of being trafficked, whether it's for labor, for organ harvesting, blood harvesting, or sex. These children are the ones who have parents who, work multiple jobs, lower socioeconomic income, immigrants, certainly the children of undocumented immigrant parents, whether or not they are in custody. And so it's the same children, it's the same demographic. So we would hope that he would intervene similarly here, especially when the bill is not necessary. We already have an existing caretaker's authorization affidavit that can be used. The bill should have beefed that up to make it more safe for undocumented immigrant parents and all parents to use, but they went the other way with it. So it's unnecessary. It makes things more dangerous for all parents, but especially the parents, these types of parents that I was just mentioning to you. So hopefully he intervenes. I'm not sure. He has really surprised me. So we would think he would intervene. I'm not sure. I personally am not sure. He's running for president. He's going to want those votes. And so he might be more inclined to sign the bill. My hope would be that he intervenes and says, this bill has great intentions and it's not perfect and it's dangerous. And so we need a little bit more time to work on it. That would be the presidential compromise.
Exactly. If I were a leftist, consulting him, I would say now that you've gotten the right in the middle, Republicans and Democrats and libertarians and independents all hating this bill, walk out, talk about how you care about children and the government doing the right thing and being used right for the right person or for the right purpose. And therefore you don't agree with this and you got to safeguard parental authority in children. And I'm vetoing it because now we could use that to counter all the people that say you're a flaming liberal, Marxist, blah, blah, blah. And we'll be able to use this to say, because if that were the case, wouldn't he have signed AB 495? So from a political perspective, he should come out, make hay over why he is vetoing it and use it. And I guess we better watch to see if they do that, because if that's the case, this whole thing has been a ploy.
Well, and we saw the AB 957, which was a bill last year that said that, just very, paraphrasing here, AB 957, remember, said that in a custody dispute, when a parent is the affirming parent, that there will be a presumption that custody being awarded to that parent is in the best interest of the child. Remember that bill? And it actually passed. But he came in and he said, this bill is not necessary. We already have existing laws on the books that are designed to identify, that identify factors that are designed to determine which parent with having custody would be in the best interest of the child. So he said that AB 957 was duplicative, and he ended up striking it down and vetoing it. He did it in a way, like you just said, that was very, political. It was politically correct, right? It acknowledged Assemblywoman Wilson's intentions with the bill, the design of the bill, and what she wanted to do, protecting children. He is a big LGBTQ plus advocate, especially for children. And so he recognized this was a well-intentioned bill, but it's poorly written and it's not necessary. He actually didn't say it was poorly written, but he said it's just not necessary. It's duplicative. And so he's vetoed the bill. And that would be the same angle that I would propose here. I think he needs to be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more sensitive, and he could actually use it to his advantage. And I would hope that he does that here. And so I think that our campaign asking him to veto the bill, pointing to the fact that a caretaker's authorization already exists, and that a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a sibling, a cousin, so once removed, and even so your great grandfather's ex-wife can use the current existing caretaker's authorization. There are already, hundreds of people who can use it to protect these children if and when their parents are unavailable for whatever reason. Again, because it's not limited to undocumented immigrant parents. It can be for any parent who has a child here in the state. So it's a duplicative bill that makes it unreasonably and dangerous for any child to be here in the state, especially in the context of the other bills that are being passed right now to erase their birth records and on an expedited basis.
Oh, wow. And then finally, Nicole, we got notice from one of our viewers, which I'm thankful for, that told me to go check out another bill, this bill here, SB 771. What is this bill? And again, you're saying, I don't live in California. Why do I care about these things? Because California leads the way in a lot of stuff. So you should be watching what California is doing, number one. You want to know what we have to watch for in our states. And two, Newsom's running for president. So let's see what bills he gets behind and signs and doesn't sign. So what is SB 771?
SB 771 actually dovetails with what we were discussing at the top of the hour, or whatever hour we're at right now. And it's designed to hold allegedly social media platforms accountable for hate speech and violent speech. It's very interesting that this bill was written by Senator Henry Stern, who is an attorney. It's unconstitutional. It runs afoul. It conflicts with, and so would be preempted by an existing federal law. Let me just pull it up right here for you. The federal law, I have it for you. I just forgot. But, it conflicts with the Common Decency Act, Section 230 of the Common Decency Act, which is a existing federal law. So it will be challenged. There are already many tech, digital, communications organizations that are opposing the bill. And it goes to the same, my fear with this bill, even though I hate speech and I don't want people, inciting imminent violence and not lawlessness and threatening other people. We already have laws in place. We have state laws, we have the Constitution, and we have over 100 years of U.S. Supreme Court precedent that defines what kind of speech is protected, what is not. And again, we have an existing federal law that addresses this issue. So I'm really curious to understand Senator Stern's the impetus behind this bill that's very clearly unconstitutional and will be set aside if passed into law. But it also has been presented to the governor on the 22nd. So both of these bills, AB 495 was presented to the governor on the 15th. He has 12 days or until the 27th to veto the bill. So we actually have to get working on that right away. And SB 771 was presented to him on the 22nd. So we have until sometime in October. I don't want to do the math wrong, but 12 days from the 22nd to have him veto that bill as well. That's another clear-cut one that he should just say, this violates existing federal law. Let's work on something. Let's do better by our constituents and come up with something a little bit better, perhaps next legislative session.
The bill seems vague in some ways.
Absolutely.
California law prohibits all persons and entities, including corporations, from engaging in, aiding, abetting, or conspiring to commit acts of violence, intimidation, or coercion based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, or other protected characteristics. Well, first of all, what is intimidation? Well, I was intimidated by the discussion that was had between Brandon House and Nicole. I found it very intimidating, right? So now we're charged.
Well, words are violence. Nowadays, words are violence, right? So, but that's a very dangerous, that's a very nebulous term to your point. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
And so it goes on to say that California has a compelling interest in protecting its residents from targeted threats, violence, coercion, harassment. Again, how do you define harassment? Okay, particularly when directed at historically marginalized groups. Okay, so their conversation last night made me feel harassed and marginalized, says the person, of a special protected class. And now all of a sudden, whammo, we're getting charged, we're getting fined. The Human Rights Campaign, which is a very radical group, guys. You ought to go look up who funds it, who's behind it. We've done studies on them. But then you say, according to the Department of Justice, anti-Jewish bias even rose by 52.9%. And anti-Islamic bias events rose by 62%. Now, you want to talk about a thesis and antithesis, idea, opposite idea, Hegelian dialectic. Let's grab those who are being anti-Semitic, and then let's grab up the Islamists, a lot of them that are anti-Semitic, quoting the Quran and calling them pigs and apes. I mean, I don't know if people have read the Quran, what it says about the Jews and the followers of the book, but you talk about the two groups that are that are going at each other. Well, again, let's go with the extremist on both sides and let's criminalize all the extremists, right? And that's my concern. And when this was proposed in the UK by Tony Blair, and this is in my 2016 book, he wanted to criminalize you if you were a Holocaust denier. Well, I don't like Holocaust deniers, and I don't agree with that. I've seen the black and white footage. I've interviewed Holocaust survivors. Some of them now have since passed away in my 35-year career, but I have interviewed them, and they're on video and radio, me interviewing them. So I know they existed because I've interviewed people who went through it. And we got the black and white photos of the death camps, right? I don't like Holocaust deniers, and neither do the rabbis in the UK. And they told Tony Blair, we don't like Holocaust deniers, but we also really like free speech. And we're not going to get behind your idea of hate crimes based on Holocaust deniers, because that will cut both ways. And this is such a vague piece of legislation. I can tell by reading the first few paragraphs, but it's, like you said, goes right back to the first part of our conversation, hate speech, and then roping in all the social media platforms and whatnot so they can shut us down, fine us, persecute us. And this broadcast is off the air because we can't come on here and tell you, let me tell you what the Islamists are saying about synagogues and Jews and Christians and the people that follow the book. Let me tell you what they're up to with the communist LGBT that they've militarized, who have their own videos out there as being militant LGBTQ communists to come against they're called queer militants. We've shown their own websites. We're going to be done. This network will be off the air by law, whether in California, and it won't take long before those platforms say, well, to comply with California and New York, we just have to cancel your whole show. Sorry, you can't use our platforms anymore. Now, kiss certain, I won't say their names because I'm not saying they're going to do this, but kiss the big platforms goodbye, and we're off the air.
Well, so to your point, this is directed at the platforms, and it's allegedly directed at the algorithm. So any platform that utilizes an algorithm that amplifies this type of speech, that's how he was trying to explain it and justify it. So, where there's like more intent, right? There's more of a concerted effort to amplify these types of voices. But to, like you were just saying, again, to your point, this is just the modern day misinformation. This is the COVID-19 misinformation campaign that they went against, or the COVID-19 misinformation that they were always championing or against, right? Lobbying against. And we had all those laws like AB 2098 that I testified against and we rallied against, that was trying to censor and actually strip the licenses of medical professionals who literally, it said in the bill that they didn't support the current COVID-19 narrative. That's what the bill said. It's the same idea here. It's very interesting here. I actually haven't seen any bills that are being seriously considered in the federal or state legislature about Islamophobia, excuse me. I see a lot of anti-Semitism bills, but those anti-Semitism is the 2025 COVID misinformation. So regardless of whether it's to combat alleged Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, the laws are already in place to handle this. Lawsuits can already be brought. And what we're going to see is exactly what we saw in the 2020 to 2022, where we saw Mark Zuckerberg, all these social media platforms that are pushing a government sanctioned narrative and suppressing countervailing ideas. It's just dangerous. It doesn't work. We've already seen it. Millions and millions of people died because of what Mark Zuckerberg did on Facebook and what they did with Meta and Instagram and the other social media channels. We absolutely don't need to see that happen again. Again, the best ideas will rise to the top, and the worst ideas and organizations and entities will go down to the bottom and be flushed out of society. We don't need bills like this that will basically force social media platforms to self-censor, and out of, being overly cautious, they're going to censor more. And then we don't have the modern, square of ideas. We need to have the social square. We need to have that place where we can have an open civic debate. And if we have social media platforms self-censoring because they're worried about $500,000 plus fines times billions of users, then we're going to have a serious problem. We won't have that common place of ideas. We won't have that marketplace, and we won't have that free debate. So again, I don't like hate speech. I don't want anyone to be any phobic or any anti-anything. I don't want people to be hurling epithets and threats at other individuals.
Exactly.
But again, existing law already handles that. We don't need a bill like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, you do a great job. I don't think we've ever had you on a show this long, but what a conversation. We've covered the waterfront, and very few people could do this tonight. So thank you for being so smart and articulate. Take a look at this. No, I'm serious. Facts, law, truth, justice. Facts, law, truth, justice. This is a A great organization, and you should support them, financially support her and her work. The proof is in the pudding, her being in court, filing the cases, doing the work. She does it herself. This is an organization that stretches the dollars. So I really like, I don't get anything for it saying this, but I believe it. And I've seen the results of what she's accomplished. So there you go. A great group to tell your family and friends about and even support. FactsLawTruthJustice.com, FactsLawTruthJustice.com. Nicole, thank you for being here. I didn't tell you we're going to go this long, but it was such a wonderful conversation. And it is the give and take, the back and forth. I love it. And I know our audience is thankful that you gave us that much time tonight. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This is what we need. This is how we stay free.
And thank your family for letting us take you away for so long.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Nicole Pearson checking in. FactsLawTruthJustice.com, folks. Mark it as a favorite, bookmark it, share it with your family and friends. Now, when we post this tomorrow, you guys should share this all over the place. Tweet, or X, Facebook, Getter, True Social, whatever you do, spread it far and wide. We talked about a lot of stuff in great detail you're not going to hear in a lot of other places, folks. So I hope you'll do that, okay? All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Do you appreciate what we're doing? All we're pushing out for free? Would you please consider going right now to worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. We need your support, guys. We have to have your support. worldviewfoundation.com. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. worldviewfoundation.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Hey, don't forget to go to things like worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone. Get your beanie that knocks down the EMP. Get your blankets that knock down the EMP. What's that, Logan? EMF. Sorry, not EMP. EMF. Thank you, Logan. Get your solar generators. It's all your bulletproof backpacks. Worldviewtalk.com, or just call them 1-866-738-3224. May God save America. Take care.